back to Wellness Wednesday, where our health experts answer your specific questions. Please welcome back today Dr. Sean West from Premera Blue Cross and Counselor Brenda Reese. It's good to have you both back.
Thank you.
And Brenda, we have a question for you, first of all, from one of our audience members, Shirley. Go ahead.
All right. Dr. Reese, how do I learn to not solve their problem for them? Because I know how to do this,
Yes.
but they don't do what I say.
And we're talking about the idea of helping someone who has a problem or a loss and how you respond from the outside.
Yes. And that's a great question. And what I have to do, because I have to stop myself sometimes in going right ahead and fixing the problem, is I have to do something physical. Like I have to hold my hand, and I even sometimes bite my lip to remind me, right? It's like to listen and to stay focused on what they are saying, because I can do that. I want to help everybody. And so, like, my husband says, quit coaching me, just listen. And so I get to do that. And so I have to have a physical reminder. And the more I can do that, then it starts to kind of repattern what I want to do and jump in and fix it.
And why is that important to do that rather than jump to the, here, let me tell you what to do?
Well, because you'll shut that person off. They're not being heard.
So you might think you're helping,
You
but
think you're
not.
helping, but they're not ready. And another thing that you can do is ask if they want input. Do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to offer some suggestions? And then that helps them know where they're at. Like, oh, wait a minute.
Do you think you can do that?
Oh, yeah, I can definitely do that.
Yeah, and that way you know what to do. You know your role then.
That's a great option, just to say to somebody, do you want me to listen? Do you want input? And then honor their request at that point, because they kind of know where they're coming from. So people have also asked, if you're at parties, holiday events, family stuff, you feel overwhelmed in the moment, and sometimes that's when somebody says something or does something that they kind of regret later. What are the steps to kind of remove yourself from that feeling of overwhelmed and perhaps acting in a way you regret?
Yeah, the overwhelm is tough this time of year. And so it's really kind of having a self-check-in for yourself, one, to know where you're at. What I use the term energetically, just kind of know where my energy is. Have I been too busy? Am I suffering a loss? Because this time of year brings up, we were just talking about that, brings up so much grief. And so if you are going to go to an event, is knowing that I'm only going to be there for a certain amount of time, because that's all the energy that I have, or that is there a place that I can just step away from and just kind of collect my thoughts before I say something that I don't regret, but that I will regret, because it's important though to know where I'm at and honor me. If I don't honor me, then I am going to not honor anybody else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if you've arrived, just know I'm frazzled.
Yes.
So I'll make decisions accordingly.
Yes.
And not ask too much of myself. Dr. West, let's talk a little bit, since we have talked about addiction. Sometimes the addiction comes on in part because drugs can be as self-medicating. I feel better, my pain's better, but also, maybe my mood is better, or it covers up some other problems. How should we think about addiction?
Yeah, I think that happens quite a bit. Oftentimes people have anxiety, maybe something like a social anxiety disorder, and they find that if they drink alcohol, then they're not as anxious, maybe in a social gathering, or they don't have all those negative feelings. And so what happens is they get into that sort of a cycle where they're using, they're self-medicating essentially with some type of substance, whether that be marijuana or alcohol or opioids. And they're not really addressing the underlying issue, and it becomes a negative cycle which can lead to addiction, where I think a healthier response is to say, I'm feeling uncomfortable, something's not working, why is that? And talking to somebody. You could start with a friend or family, or maybe your primary care provider. Maybe you have a significant anxiety or depressive disorder, which can be treated with very safe medication or therapy or a combination of those things.
And I think maybe people don't know, you've pointed this out, that your primary care doctor is a perfectly good place to start, maybe the best place to start. What can a primary care doctor do for you in a circumstance like this?
Yeah, I think most primary care providers really want to help their patients, and so they're not going to be judging you. They're there to help you, and saying,
And they've heard this before. You're not the first person.
And unfortunately, it's very common. So so they're used to it, and I think that just being open with them about what's going on, and they can use tools or screening mechanisms to find out where your issues are and how it's affecting you and your quality of life, and then based on that, decide what's right for you. So is it medication? Is it a counselor? Is it, maybe there needs to be some testing done to check your thyroid? I mean, there's any number of things that they can do and really help be your quarterback for your care to direct you in the right place.
And this also applies to pain, right? If you're in pain, maybe there are other aspects of your life that are playing into that. And again, talk about that. Now, a lot of these appointments go by pretty quickly. So how do you kind of make sure that the setting is such that you feel like you can talk about this?
Yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of times you're hesitant to talk about it, and you wind up, doing other things, and the doctor's busy, and
then they're out the door.
And the appointment's gone. So I think you need to go in there and really be upfront with your provider about, what's bothering you, and they need to, make that space and ask right away so that you can spend time on it, and not something like, oh, by the way, because then you've kind of lost the opportunity. So really just coming in and saying, I know this, I don't, I'm anxious about talking about this. Maybe I have fears of being judged by my doctor, but I think most people will find that that's welcome and desired.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Those are such good points and so timely for the holidays. Coming up, how the upcoming FCC vote on net neutrality could impact your internet usage and what it costs. We'll be right back.